Hey, back again at midnight. Definitely here for it. My sleeping schedule is so messed up, guys. All right. Today is Thursday. Actually, it is Thursday right now. And we are going to talk about how to solve quadratic equations in the most hated way I've ever known in my life. So, I absolutely detest completing the square. I think it's stupid. I think it's pointless. I think what a great way to start a video, Miss Strat. I know, I'm sorry, but listen, I hate completing the square. I know you guys will hate it too. It's something we have to learn. It's something that you'll sound real smart saying in the future, like, "Oh, do you know how to complete the square?" And for the people who know, whatever, you're in school, you're in high school, you're learning algebra two, talking about the completing the square. You're just gonna be in the know. You're gonna be a cool guy. So, with that being said, I'm not giving you an assignment on it because I'm just not yet. It will be on a quiz probably next week. But for now, let's focus on learning what it is. Let's focus on hating it together, and then we can move on from this. So in this lesson, I just want to tell you that I foresee students like Kevin comes to mind when I think about this lesson. We're going to have some problems that you're going to be like, Kevin would ask, can we just do this the regular way? Yes, we can, which is why I hate this so much. It makes it so much more complicated to solve problems. So when we get to those things, you're going to be like, wait, can't we just factor it? The answer will be yes. However, you know how tests go, you know how they are, and they say solve using this method. Well, they make it so that you have to use that method. They'll do like little fill in the blank boxes, they'll do little drop down menus, and you have to fill in the right steps in from that method. So that's how they test you in knowing that method. Now, obviously, if they don't care what method you use, they'll just say solve, and you can do whatever your little heart desires. But for now, we have to talk about completing the square. So the lesson after square roots is this one. We're going to do a quick little 4-question warm up, reminding us of what perfect square trinomials look like. So perfect square trinomials are basically the square root of c doubled is b. So what I mean by that is this trinomial factored, because x times x is x squared. You double the product in the middle, so 4 times x, that's a product. Doubled is 8x, and then you square this term. 4 squared is 16. So x squared plus 8x plus 16 becomes this squared binomial. Let's try it with this one. Well, we know it's going to be x. Everything's positive, so it has to be plus. What squared is 1? Right? What times x doubled would give you 2? Well, 1x plus 1x gives you 2. So 1x doubled gives you 2x. Okay? This one, the sign's a little bit different. However, this is a negative on the inside, so you know the numbers add up to be negative, but they multiply to be positive. Well, how could something add to be negative but multiply to be positive? Well, that's if both of them are negative. Okay, this factored, again, the product, or not the product, yeah, the product of these two is 9x, negative 9x. If you double it, it's negative 18x. If you square negative 9, it becomes positive 81. And then this one is the same thing, x minus 5 squared. So technically you want to look at this number and think, okay, well, what's the square root of c? That will be your b term, or this term right here. And then the sign in the middle comes from what the signs of b and c are. So that's just a little reminder of what perfect square trinomials are. If you have a perfect square trinomial, you can solve the quadratic equation by square roots. So this is what it's going to look like. Okay, in a perfect situation, you don't have to move, set it equal to 0, because remember, when you factor, you have to set everything equal to 0 if you're solving by factoring, but completing the square says you're going to do this. So it says factor the perfect square trinomial, then solve the equation by square roots. Remember, a positive number always has 2 square roots, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, so this factored is x plus 2 squared equals 25. Well, x plus 2 times x plus 2 is x squared plus 4x plus 4, and then we don't have to move this because this is a perfect square trinomial. That's what we wanted. So what they're saying to do is square root both sides, and you get x plus 2, I don't really need those parentheses anymore, equals positive and negative 5. So in one situation, it equals positive 5, and the other it equals negative 5. So how are you going to solve for x? You're going to subtract 2. And you're going to write it like this. You're going to do -2 plus or minus 5. Well, you know what that equals. -2 plus 5 is 3, and -2 minus 5 is -7. So in this case, Kevin, right, you could have just said, well, if I subtracted 25, that would be x squared plus 4x minus 21. Sorry I'm calling you out, Kevin, but I see you in my mind saying, well, can't we just factor it? And yes, you're right, and this is what I want to show you. So in the factoring method, you would set them equal to 0, and you would say, well, what times, times itself gives you -21 but adds to be 4? Well, that's easy. It's x plus 7 times x minus 3. And then you know the answer without going through all of this mess. So it's -7, +3. Oh my God, look, wow. Congratulations. So yes, you can factor most of these, but if it asks you to do completing the square, I need you to know what that means. So we're gonna do the same thing here. You need to recognize that you have a PST. PST means perfect square trinomial in this problem right now. So this is because the square root of 36 is 6, and if I doubled 6 or -6, I would get -12. This is also a perfect square, and then we're going to solve by square roots. So we're going to square root both sides. We get x minus 6 equals positive and -9. We're going to add 6 to both sides. We're going to write it like this, and we get our answer as 6 plus 9 is 15. 6 minus 9 is -3. Okay, this is not completing the square, by the way. This is like prep to get there. So this one is also a perfect square trinomial. X minus 7 squared equals 4. I tricked you, right? You're like, oh, this is so easy. No, this is not it yet. Okay, x minus 7 equals positive -2. Add, so that was kind of mean, right? I'm sorry. X equals 7 plus or minus 2. And we know that becomes 7 plus 2 is 9. 7 minus 2 is 5. Okay. This one again, perfect square. The square root of 9 is 3. 3 doubled gives you some form of 6, right? The absolute value of 6. So x plus 3 squared equals 1. Square root both sides. We get x plus 3, positive -1. Subtract 3. X equals -3 plus or minus 1, which means our answer is -3 plus 1, which is -2. -3 minus 1 is -4. That was ugly. Okay, that was how you work with perfect square trinomials. Now, completing the square, I wish you can see me when I'm talking about this. Like, this just sucks. Completing the square means that when you do not have a perfect square trinomial, so when life is not easy, like when you have in these problems, you can make one. Your dreams have all come true. You can actually make a perfect square trinomial. This process is called completing the square, aka yuck. We hate it. I don't know. I'm sorry. If any of you like this method at the end of this, please let me know, because I don't know one person who actually likes completing the square. Okay, so this is how you do it. When a equals 1, meaning there's nothing in front of your x squared term, we're going to rewrite it equaling to c. So we're going to subtract 7 on this one. And yes, we can factor this very simply using factoring. All right, so this means that we are writing this as x squared plus 8x equals -7. Okay, step 2 says take half of b, square it, then add this to both sides. What? Yep, you heard it. Half of b, well, half of 8 is 4. 4 squared equals 16, and now we're going to add that to both sides. So I'm going to take another little color here. We're going to get x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals -7 plus 16. So that's what that means, added to both sides. So we just created, guys, our perfect square trinomial. So fun, right? Now we're going to factor this and simplify this. So we have to simplify now. just in case that wasn't obvious to some of us. So we're going to factor the perfect square trinomial and simplify the right side, just in case we need a reminder. Okay, so factoring this, again, we just had a refresher on a perfect square trinomial. Square root of 16 is 4. Well, 4 times 4, or 4 plus 4 is 8. So that means this is x plus 4 squared equals negative 7 plus 16 is 9. So now we're going to take the square root of both sides like we did in these 4 problems and solve for both cases. So x plus 4 equals positive and negative 3. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and we get x equals negative 4 plus or minus 3, which means that negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Ta-da! I hate it. Do you hate it too? I don't know. It's so unnecessary to me. Like, I'm not actually trying to be positive about it. I'm just trying to make it funny to teach you, because I think it is like a little bit excessive, but we know how to do it, so we're going to do it. All right. We do not have a perfect square trinomial here because there's no square root of 27. So we're going to make one. Remember, we have to subtract c and set it x squared minus 12x equals negative 27. Okay, then we take half of b. So we're going to do step 1 is x squared plus bx equals c. Step 2 is half b. Square that. Add both sides. Factor. And then solve. So those are our little 4 steps, okay? So half of b, half of negative 12 is negative 6. What did I do over here to make it? Nothing, right? We just said, oh, it's divided by 2, it's negative 6. So this means that negative 6 squared equals 36. So we're going to add that 36 to both sides. So we get x squared minus 12x plus 36. I should have wrote that in the other color. Plus 36 equals negative 27 plus 36. Whatever. Now we factor. So we have x minus 6 squared equals negative 27 plus 36 is 9. Now we solve. So x minus 6 equals positive and negative 3. Add 6 to both sides. We get x equals 6 plus or minus 3, which means that our answer is 6 plus 3, which is 9, 6 minus 3, which is 3. Couldn't we have just solved this by factoring? You got it. You got it, friends. You could. Okay. I guess I'm going to do all of these, and then you guys can do the homework. No, I'm going to do the homework because you have the answers to this. I want you to be able to check your answers. Okay, I'm going to do one of the irrational ones, and then we'll do the homework odds. So, again, we're going to add c. So far they've been all easy. Oh, we get the perfect square, whatever. But now we're going to have radicals. So this now becomes, I'm going to write it over here so I have more room. X squared minus 2x equals 4. Half of b is 1, or negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 4 plus 1. Okay, factor, we get x minus 1 squared equals 5. Well, if we take the square root of this, obviously 5 doesn't have a square root, so we're going to write x minus 1 equals positive or negative square root 5. In order to solve for x, we need to add 1, and our answer looks like this. x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. And you will leave it like this. Guys, it's very important that you're writing things the way I write them, and that's kind of a clue to me how I know, like, the funniness has stopped for a second. That's kind of how I know that you're not watching my videos, is because you're not writing your solutions the way that I write them, and it's kind of, like, disappointing, I guess, because this is not, like, it's not correct the way that you write some things. When I'm looking at the answers on the quizzes, you have, like, these crazy solutions, like, you have x1 equals, you have this equals, like, that means x squared equals. This is x1. All I want you to do is write it in these brackets. That's it. You know, so some of you are going a little wild, and that's how I know you're not watching the videos. If you did, you would know, and the ones who did, I saw you, I salute you. You're doing it correctly. Even the brackets I would take, because that's not a coordinate, all right? So please, when I'm telling you the way to write something, please listen, because it is the correct way. I don't want you to be embarrassed in Algebra 2, like, oh, your algebra teacher didn't teach you anything. I did, you just weren't listening, okay? So that's the correct way to write it. Now, homework 8, we're gonna do a few of these bad guys right here, and then you guys are gonna try to practice on your own. So these are perfect squares. I want to do the one where we have to solve by completing the square. So I'm going to start on number 5. We're going to add 16 on both sides. We get x squared minus 6x equals 16. And then we're going to take half of negative 6, which is negative 3 squared equals 9. We're going to add 9 to both sides. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 16 plus 9. So factor this. This now becomes a perfect squared trinomial because the square root of 9 is 3, and then that guy doubled would give us this, and it's negative, so we know it's going to be x minus 3 equals 16 plus 9 is our friend 25. So solve, meaning you're taking the square root of both sides, because we don't want to distribute this. We don't want to expand this because we would just get back to here. We want to solve, so we want to keep going smaller. This becomes x minus 3 equals positive and negative 5. Why does this become x minus 3? The square root cancels with the square. Just wanted to make sure we all knew where that's coming from. So then we add our 3. X equals 3 plus or minus 5. And we don't leave this like this way like we did in number 9, because we don't have something we don't know the value of. We know the value here. We can simply add and subtract here. So that's why we actually go one step further and solve. So 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. There are your answers. Okay, let's subtract this 14. We get x squared plus 4x equals 46 minus 14 is 32. Okay, so we're going to take half of this and add that to both sides. I feel like that's the part, if you forget something, will be the part that you forget. So x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 32. That's correct, right? 32. 6 minus 4 is 2. Yeah, 32. I've got to check sometimes. And then we're going to add 4. Okay, we're going to perfect square trinomial this. This is a positive. Okay. Take the square root. X plus 2 equals positive negative 6. We know that we're going to subtract 2. We get x equals. We're going to put the thing that we added or subtracted first, because this operator is important that we do that after, because it will be a little confusing to go negative 6 minus 2, positive 6 minus 2. If you want to do it at the end, it's really up to you. I prefer this way just so you can, I don't know. I don't know why I prefer it. I just do. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. And there's your answer there. So those are both rational solutions, right? We had our perfect square root in both cases, and we solved for our things. Trying to see if there's going to be an irrational one. Let's try 13 and 15. No, let's try, you know what? While we're here, how long has this been? Ooh, this has been fun. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this is taking so long. I just know that this is one of those difficult concepts that people just resist learning. So let's just make it a little fun, okay? So I just added and subtracted and moved a bunch of these at the same time. I hope you don't mind. So I realized that my C, or my constant, has to be on the right and my variables have to be on the left. So I moved negative 12x and I subtracted 41 over here. So in the end, it's going to look like this. It's going to be x squared minus 12x equals 9. This should say minus 9 minus 41. Well, 41 minus 9, 41 minus 10 would be 31. So is going to be a negative 32. And then we're going to go from there. So we're going to take half of negative 12, which is negative 6 squared, equals 36. X squared minus 12x. We've got our plus 36 equals negative 32 plus 36. I'm sorry I opened this video so aggressively. I guess I have strong feelings towards completing the square. It's just something I never look forward to teaching because, like, I can never answer the question, well, why do we have to do this? It's like, I'm sorry. I feel your pain. All right, we square rooted both sides of this. So we get x minus 6 equals positive and negative 2. X equals 6 plus or minus 2. So that means our answer is 8 and 4. Okay, so you saw how you work this out with jumbled messes on either side. You'll just have to get the x squared term plus bx to equal c. This is your model. You have to make it look like this. So that's what we did in this part. Okay, that's what we would do here. I want to go down to 13 and 15 because I have a feeling that those are going to be our irrational solutions. So let's look at these and go from there. So at the same time, I'm going to move both of these terms. Okay, I know my x squared is staying, and I'll do it right under it this time. X squared, this now becomes negative 18x. This cancels and comes over here. So this canceled as well. Now we're left with negative 74 on this side. So I'm going to take half of negative 18, which is negative 9, square it, and add that to both sides. We get x squared minus 18x plus 81 equals negative 74 plus 81. So we factor. Negative 74 plus 81, that's positive 7. And then we're going to square root. I don't know why. My integers have been like completely off lately. Maybe I'm shy from the camera and I can't do it on the spot anymore. Plus or minus the square root of 7. Okay, so obviously 7 is not a perfect square, so we have to leave this when we solve like this. So we've got 9 plus or minus the square root of 7. So that's all you do when you have something. Now, if 7 were to be able to be simplified, meaning 7 is prime. So if the number was not prime and was able to be factored or simplified as a radical, we would have to do this. Now, hopefully this one is like that. It is. So let's do this one. X squared minus 4x equals 28. Half of b added to both sides. X squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 28 plus 4. Okay, remember we had to add that 7 and make sure that it was ax squared plus bx equals c. So now we're going to factor x minus 2 squared equals 32. Square root both sides. Now here's a larger number than 7, and we know that this can be broken down into how we used to do in simplify our radicals. Now some of you are going to say 8 and 4, and can anyone think of why that's incorrect? Well, I hope you said because the square root of 8 and the square root of 4 is not completely simplified. 8 has a factor of 4 in it, which is a perfect square, so it needs to be bigger than the square root of 4. The square root of 4 needs to be bigger. So we're going to think, well, what's the next biggest perfect square? We have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Well, it has to be less than 25, so our next most logical thing to think of is 16. In this case, it is 16 and 2. So we know that our answer is going to be x minus 2 equals 4, positive negative 4 radical 2. That was a little confusing. Let's do this one more time. Okay, let's forget about this for a second, and let's focus on simplifying this radical. I'm going to do this up here so we have a little more space. So the square root of 32 simplifies to be the square root of 16 times the square root of 2, and then we get 4 radical 2 from it, but it's going to be positive negative 4 radical 2 because square roots have 2 roots because it's a square root. Cube root has 3 roots. Fourth root has 4 roots because it's that index. The index of here is 2, so it has 2 solutions. So now we know that this is simplified, right? We know that this is x minus 2 equals positive negative 4 radical 2. We're going to add 2, and then we get x equals 2 plus minus 4 radical 2. Drops the mic, we're done. That's how you leave it. You don't have to do anything further than that, okay? My advice to you is to try the lesson questions. So complete like 1 through, nope, that's not it. Complete 1 through, here it is, guys, sorry. 5 through 12 is what I want to say, 5 through 12. Okay, we did 5, so do 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. If you're feeling adventurous, try to work on the rest of the homework that we didn't do and see how you do. I'm mainly focused on how you do these 4 problems, 10 through 16. See how you do, come talk to me. Oh, if you're planning on coming to office hours today, aka Thursday, I will be on at 11. However, they've scheduled a ton of meetings for us today for some reason. So you can still text me, feel free. I will be on for sure from 11 to 11:30. And then I've got 11:30 meeting. We've got a 12:30 meeting for an hour, and then I've got a 3 o'clock meeting. So make sure, please, that if you have any questions, come on at 11:30, and then I can answer those questions, then I can text you if need be, all right? So I'm sorry the video was so long. I love you. I hate completing the square. I love you. All right, bye.